Tony, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start with the one thing about AI that's affecting Jersey right now that most islanders have no idea about. Obviously, things have moved so rapidly. You know, it was back in 22, I think, that OpenAI launched ChatGPT, and then by the end of the next year, suddenly it was Collins Dictionary Word of the Year. So, I mean, lots of rapid change. A lot of people saying they haven't necessarily caught up to it just yet. So what are we missing? What are we not talking about enough?
I think everyone talks about ChatGPT and chatbots and things like that, and people use it. What people aren't as aware of is how AI is automating things that it wasn't being used for before. And there's lots of things in financial services. There's mortgage applications, things like that being done. But one of my favorites, I think people will realize increasingly as they get talked to about it, is GPs using it. So we've had a lot of boards using it for meeting minutes and things like that, but I particularly like, we had this thing with Heidi Health, another piece of software. Whenever we go and see a GP, they're normally sitting there typing during the so, but now they can have AI listen, take notes while they focus on the patient, and then they can check the notes, put it into the system, and it's fine. So it's that automation of things which are not so much drudgery, but are things which actually aren't adding value, and they enable people to focus, the humans in the loop, to focus on where the real value is added. So what I've been particularly excited about is how AI is helping with health, and it's helping people's health. It's helping health practitioners do their job better.
So, I mean, as you say, you've touched upon there, you know, removing that bit of drudgery from the day to day, and how that can kind of, I know that obviously unlocks a lot of productivity gains and helps you do the human side better. Are there some other exciting, innovative uses that you're starting to see, starting to grow over time, particularly in health?
Yeah, so diagnosis. We've recently come across a project that you'll read more about that we've been looking at through our Impact Jersey initiative, and that is about making sure we have a better diagnosis of things like cancer. And it's important to make sure you're not creating too many false negatives, because that takes up resources in the system. People want to focus on people that really need attention, but also make sure that signs aren't missed. So AI is very good at pattern recognition, better than humans. You know, I remember a great example is listening to a podcast on AI, and that's how I recommend a lot of people get into AI. Build it into your routine, going for a walk, listening to a podcast. And somebody said, well, the problem with AI for, let's say, X-rays or MRI scans is it's only 92% accurate. And the person on the other end of the discussion said, yes, but do you know how accurate the humans are? They're 70 and 80%. And we don't think about it. We tend to think humans are the 100% and machines are catching up. Machines are better than humans now with AI, going through lots of data very quickly, spotting patterns, and you think about diagnosis and test results and things like that with health. So using AI for the things it's really good at, and using AI for things where you can give it the data. So you're less likely to have the hallucinations and the mistakes if you've got the good data, which is a whole other issue, obviously.
I mean, that sort of thing, when we're talking about health and in particular diagnosis, you know, that's a really sensitive area. There are some people who say, wow, what a fantastic application, and others who will think, goodness me, AI in health, robots in health, you know, do we really trust this? There's a bit of a psychological leap there, I suppose, that some people have to take to maybe accept that.
Yes, but it's explaining the difference it can make, not the technology of say. I mean, another Impact Jersey project we've been looking at, and hopefully we can out soon, is about how can you use AI and technology full stop to make sure people are taking the medication they need to take at the right time, without necessarily having to send a human out, which is time consuming, expensive. We don't have a resource. We have an aging demographic. We're going to need more carers. That's going to be a challenge. And actually people want to be independent. They don't necessarily want to be reliant on other people. So I think, and the GP example is another one, as long as the health professional is able to explain to the patient what this will enable. It's not about the technology. It's what can happen that is going to help your life, is going to improve your chances, is going to improve the accuracy of diagnoses, is going to improve the health service you get. And I'm really optimistic about how Jersey is starting to use technology in health.
If you could walk me through the patient experience in the instances where this type of technology is being used.
Ideally, the patient wouldn't see anything different because it's the practitioner that's using it. So the fact that the GP, for example, if they're taking notes, it's just listening and typing the notes itself while you talk to the GP. So you're still talking to the GP, but you've got the GP's whole attention rather than X% of their attention, while the rest of the attention is sitting at the keyboard. So ideally they wouldn't see it. I think in those cases where they are seeing it, they need to be taught how to use it. They need to be made comfortable. And that's where the human in the loop we talk about really adds the value. They need to be sold it like anything else. They need to explain the benefit. But what I think is interesting is there tends to be this sort of lazy assumption that old people don't use technology. I remember last summer, I was asked to speak to the Jersey Arthritis Association, quite a high average age, as you can imagine, in St. Clement Parish Hall. And they were complaining that they're still getting letters from the hospital. Why aren't we getting emails? Why aren't we getting text messages? So they want the technology. They will use the apps. They will use this service if they see the benefit.
And I think one really important thing you've touched upon there that you alluded to earlier is that the workforce pressures that we're having at the moment. Obviously, we do have this ageing demographic that we're having to think about. We're having to think about how we care for them and how AI can unlock more human time to be able to assist with that.
I've spoken in the past, and not my original idea, listening to people talking in industry, the way of thinking about AI is synthetic workers. We're not talking about Terminator and giant killer robots, but it's the ability to have additional workers which aren't humans, that you don't have to recruit, that can work 24/7, that can support the actual humans. And the example I give quite often is in financial services, but care as the health sector is the same. If you suddenly were able to say, well, we like twice the number of people working in the finance industry because we get more business into Jersey, or you could say we'd like twice the number of people working in the health service. Well, that costs money with real people. I mean, it can cost money with technology as well, but where would you house people? What pressures would that give onto a small island? Now, AI and technology, we've often said technology is about the only way you can improve outcomes whilst reducing costs. And I remain disappointed that so many people do not get that. I mean, you look at all the political manifestos that are coming out right now, how many of them are talking about harnessing technology? There are a few of them. Sadly, I think there's more people saying, let's get rid of all this technology stuff, which is quite depressing. But again, you think technology can enable us to be more productive. It can do more business. So actually, it's a dream. The ability for Jersey to do more without growing the population sounds like a win-win to me and to Jersey, but you have to do it properly. Now, the downside of technology, if you don't get it right, is we could lose jobs. And you know what? We will lose jobs. So all the people who say we won't lose, we will lose jobs. We've always lost jobs in certain areas, but we've made up for it in other areas. Jersey's been very good at that. And as I always say, that AI presents an opportunity and a threat. So the opportunity is we can fill gaps in our workforce. We can do more business. We can provide more resources where we really need it. We can improve outcomes. We can improve efficiency. The threat is that we lose jobs. We lose tax revenue for the economy. We lose opportunities for young people. And the thing is, this isn't just about AI or technology. If you just sit back and do nothing, you'll get the threat. You only get the opportunities if you make the effort. If you invest in technology, skills, people, you look at what's coming, you change responsibly, but you do embrace and harness this new technology.
I think what's really interesting is, what you're talking about is we need a whole kind of societal sort of visioning exercise, because there are lots of individual opportunities in AI. You've spoken about a couple of specific projects that can make a massive difference. But how do we do this kind of top level approaches to reshaping our whole society? If there are job losses, how are we rebuilding in certain areas? How are we going to guide that vision? I imagine Digital Jersey has an important place in trying to help build that vision and that structure for how Jersey will look as a workforce in future.
Yes, people often ask about, what's the particular focus on Digital Jersey? Why do we need a Digital Jersey? Well, sometimes when you need change, as you said, you need a team of people that are frankly quite obsessed with this, that are going to push everyone else. And I often describe my job as sometimes a mixture of nagging and nudging, pointing out what we need to do. And actually, our role is not necessarily to do all of this for everyone. It's to act as a change agent. If I think back to 8 or 9 years ago, we were the ones pushing and working with didn't need much pushing, working with the finance industry and government to say, we need to use fintech, we need to use technology in the finance sector instead of checking physical passports. We've been very good at that. We've embraced it. Jersey's been very good at using technology. You look at the fibre rollout. You look at the way we use technology partly through Digital Jersey, but others as well, through COVID, to manage the pandemic, to get world-class test and trace in, to keep people occupied and educated and entertained when they're at home, using our broadband network and services. So you need to have those change agents, and AI is no different. The one thing I would say is AI is more of an opportunity, but also more of a threat. And one of the problems with technology is you haven't got time to wait until you can see the impact, because quite often it's too late. There are various sayings in technology that it might take twice as long as you predict for something to have an impact, but when it does have that impact, it has double the impact that you were expecting. Now, Jersey can be a bit change resistant. We can be a bit slow. Now, I'm not saying we can't be a world leader in everything, but we need to be a fast follower, particularly in areas of, we need to say, what are the areas of focus? You look at government have been pushing the competitiveness of the finance industry. We need to be a fast follower, as we have been in other areas of technology and finance. We have to be in AI, because the threat there is a bit like you hear people say, AI might not take your job, but somebody else using AI might. If other jurisdictions, or competitor jurisdictions in financial services, for example, become more skilled, invest in better technology, become better at using AI, they are going to be more competitive than us, and they're going to take our business away from us, and we will lose jobs. That's the threat. The good news is, I think we have very high awareness of Jersey. We have some great examples of use of technology. The bad news is we're not being as quick as we need to be at actually investment in technology, in skills, and actually doing things. So we talk a good game, and that's important. We need the follow-up.
Well, I mean, we are going into, as you've alluded to, kind of an election process now. There is going to be change in the island. I mean, what is going to be top of your list of, you're speaking to the next Council of Ministers. What do they need to be looking at first to be able to maximise the opportunity and mitigate that threat? I
think it's emphasising that digital has never been more important. There are certain people I talk to who say, well, everything's digital now, surely. Well, it isn't necessarily in Jersey. There are some great pockets of digital expertise. There are other areas where we're not using digital enough. Government is a good example. There's a mixed bag, some good use of technology, some areas where we've not touched upon the opportunities of technology. And as a minister said to me this morning, I won't say who because we're in the election period, they said, actually, technology and digital have never been more important, particularly to the finance industry, particularly to Jersey. If you look at some of the big challenges people are talking about? Productivity, they're talking about the size of government and the cost of government, the cost of health services are unsustainable. The need to make sure our finance industry remains competitive, the need to make sure we have jobs to retain our young people. Technology is a big part of the answer to all of those. And we need to, realization is there, first of all, because quite often you'll see the same sort of examples of we need to protect our traditional industries, which we do, but we also need to grow our industries of the future. We need to grow our jobs of the future. But also we need to be more efficient. We can't, all around you say we can't afford to employ people, we can't afford the cost of certain services. And as I said earlier on, technology is about the only way you can improve outcomes, improve results, whilst reducing cost. There isn't another way. And people need to realize that. And it is improving, it improves every year. But yes, there are a few times where I think, I wish people got it a bit more.
Absolutely. Well, it feels over time that, the hearts and minds are starting to change. And as you say, there are a lot of people who have grasped onto that. If you scroll through, particularly some of the manifestos that we've started having through, you will see that kind of almost buzzword style phrase of people saying technology is the key to all of this. But then there's that question on how to turn that into delivery, how to actually turn that into outcomes. And you wonder, well, what steps are actually going to be taken? And I imagine, Digital Jersey is an enabler there for those who have understood the vision, but are wondering about that next step.
Yes, we think, I mean, a lot of what Digital Jersey do, we think really about three main pillars of what we do. There is growing a digital sector of the economy, and that is important in terms of economic diversification. Digital sector jobs bring back the same sort of salaries as financial services, often higher. They're interesting jobs. You think about, there's a lot of talk about young people leaving Jersey. Yes, they may be leaving very well for cost of living reasons, things like that. But they want interesting jobs. And we talk to a lot of young people. They want jobs in AI. They want jobs in software development. They want technology jobs. They don't all want to be civil servants or trust administrators. And actually, a lot of those roles that traditionally school leavers have done are going anyway. They're being automated. So we have to do something about that. So growing the digital sector has economic benefits, has benefits for the Jersey population. Then we look at how do other sectors of the economy use technology. Financial services is a big example, but we've done a lot in agri-tech, use of drones, use of automation in agriculture. You think about how we use technology to book restaurants and hotels and the data we get, things like that. Retail as well, online ordering. So they're really important to help the whole economy use that technology. And also innovation in digital health, government. You look at the sort of things we're doing through Impact Jersey, making sure we're a smart island. That's really important. So that's the innovation side, how the whole island can use technology. And then the third area, which is absolutely just as important, is skills. And we are not prioritizing digital skills enough. We are not giving school leavers, the education system is not giving school leavers the skills they need when they leave school to do the jobs that exist now, never mind what's going to exist in the future. But also we have a workforce that is going to need to retrain, improve their skills to use, because the better the workforce is at using AI, the more productive they're going to be, the more they can help their company, the more productive they can be, the more profitable that company can be, and the higher salary those individuals can earn. So there's a lot of focus, understandably, on reducing costs and reducing the cost of living, but actually that's less of an issue if people can earn more money.
Absolutely.
Because they're adding value. And we have to look at both sides of that equation, and technology is a big part of that. So we are pushing digital skills with a particular focus on AI right now, but we need to do more.
Well, just walk me through some of the opportunities that are there currently and what we need to go further on developing. I mean, obviously, as you say, there is I think we had some research recently published. I mean, I think tech jobs in Jersey, there are about 1,000 that have grown in the past sort of 3 years or so, which is absolutely fantastic. But at the same time, as you rightly say, we're not moving fast enough with that. Do you think the dream is really achievable of having our own homegrown kind of developers and those who are actually developing the tech that we then adopt?
We can, absolutely, and we do. I mean, one of the challenges around tech jobs is they can be done anywhere. So actually, people can leave a Jersey company and move to the UK, cheaper cost of living, still work for the Jersey company. But it works the other way as well. I mean, government has just brought in some new regulations about very highly skilled freelancers who earn a lot. Jersey is a very attractive place to them because great lifestyle, if they've got a family, they're safe. There's a lot of focus on digital nomads. What about digital nomads when they're grown up a bit and they want to put down roots? They want to be somewhere with good connectivity, whether that's digital or physical, safe place to raise their children. They can be based anywhere and sell their services around the world using our amazing digital infrastructure. We're still second or third in the world for broadband speeds. So there's an opportunity and a threat for that. So we need to be open for those sort of people. And it's great to see government have become a bit more open to freelancers, and a lot of those increasingly are digital. So there are opportunities, I think, to create jobs locally. Jobs are being created locally, but it's not prioritized enough. And the problem is there's no point creating the jobs if you haven't got the people with the skills. And as I said, if you think about the fact that most school leavers in Jersey are, if they're not going to university in the UK, and we know a lot of them don't come back for a mixture of reasons, those who stay have typically gone to work in the finance industry or in government. Where government has a recruitment freeze, if the finance industry is losing entry-level jobs because of automation, where are those young people going to work? Now, if you give them the skills around AI, they will set up their own businesses, because that's what AI enables you to do. It gives people resources to set up their own businesses. We had an AI hackathon at the end of last year. There were 20 teams of people giving up their weekends taking part, and a lot of young people, because they're the ones who get the technology. So, and if they don't work for themselves, they want to work for someone else, they can go straight into higher level jobs in organizations. They can add more value straight away. They can be more productive straight away. They don't need as much training. So yes, absolutely, we can create those jobs here, but there's no point creating the jobs if you don't invest in the skills of the workforce and the school leavers to do that as well.
Well, it sounds like, you really can't start early enough with trying to train young people in those skills. I mean, to what extent have you had those conversations with kind of disrupting the curriculum and talking to education and embedding good AI knowledge and practice into those early stages of the education process?
It's a balance. I think it's very important to educate kids about the benefits of technology. And you're seeing that I'm really proud of the job my team have done on STEM racing, and really proud of the Jersey school kids. Not just the secondary school kids we were working with initially, but the primary school kids, the 9 to 11-year-olds. They love it, and they've gone to compete in the UK. And actually, it's giving them business skills and technology skills. It's opening their eyes to careers, and that's what they want to do. I think there is a balance to be struck. I mean, I've spoken to a few campaigners locally. We tend to see it's quite a black and white view on technology. It's evil in terms of social media and some of the bad effects on children. Everyone talks about banning it, and the problem with banning it is will there be a cliff edge where people suddenly have never used technology and suddenly they're going out into the workforce. So I think what we do in Digital Jersey is it's not our role to look at the policy around social media bans and things like that, but we do want to make sure that when children are about to leave school and enter the workforce, they have the right skills. So I think there's an important role in the education department to say, what is the right age to introduce technology? How do you introduce technology? What's the right age to bring devices in? But STEM racing is a great example of introducing technology in a controlled environment, showing people the business usage of it. I think AI tools for education, it can be very powerful for teachers. It can be very powerful for kids. I think the trick is introducing it at the right level. But we have to make sure that when kids leave school, they're leaving school with not only the technology skills, but the soft skills people talk about, the critical thinking, the ability to understand how the technology works, what are the right questions to ask, how to check the workings and not just trust the technology. So it is a balance. I think I am frustrated with our education system. It's quite slow to respond. I think I can understand some of the reasons for that. When you make changes to the curriculum, you need to make sure you've got the staff who can teach it. You need to make sure you've got the resources. That is a challenge. But Jersey has to prioritise it more. It absolutely has to. It doesn't have a choice, because we will be failing our school leavers if we do not give them the right skills they're going to need for the jobs of tomorrow, the jobs of today, to be honest.
I mean, it feels like we almost need, kind of champions in every single sector to be able to actually make this change.
It's funny you say that. We've got, again, my team have done a brilliant job developing STEM pathways. And that is really about, as people are starting to think about careers beyond school, realizing what roles there are and what skills they will need. But part of that is creating champions within the schools. And that's not just teachers. There are some great IT teachers out there, but it's the kids that are great, because they can teach themselves. They'll see each other doing it. So you're absolutely right. We need to create those champions. We do have champions, I think, in industry as well. When I talked about the awareness, you may have read about the AI Council we've set up. We've got the Institute of Directors, for example, in there and their membership. We've got Jersey Finance, as well as the regulator, the Information Commissioner, lots of other people like that. The Jersey AI Forum, which have practitioners there. Awareness is very high. We're a very networked community. We've got some great organisations like Institute of Directors, Chamber of Commerce, ones I'll be criticised for forgetting right now. But no, we have a great business community, and I think they get it. But they need more help to implement it. And that's education, that's pointing out what the right technology is. One of the things Impact Jersey has been very good at is a lot of people have come to us and said, we have a problem. If we're a charity, if they're in health or in infrastructure, whatever, we've got a problem. We think technology can help. How do we find the right technology? How do we use AI responsibly and in the right way? So I think it's great that we do have a lot of champions out there, but it isn't, as you referred to the article you guys produced only a few days ago, it's not prioritized enough. And when people talk about the economy in particular, we all know there will be people that stand up and talk about the 3 pillars of our economy, our financial services, tourism, and agriculture. Well, things like agriculture are absolutely important and essential and can be helped with technology, but it's about 1% of GDP. Telecoms alone in Jersey is about 2.5% of GDP, and the wider digital sector is getting close to hospitality as an economic sector. And we need to understand the world has changed. And Jersey has historically been very good at changing and adapting, but AI is making changes so incredibly quickly that we can't be complacent. We can't sit back. If we're going to deliver it, if we're going to announce a strategy, we need to then deliver it quickly and have the detailed action plan.
I mean, of course, as you've mentioned as well, that does require investment. I mean, where are the priority areas that sort of investment needs to go to immediately to make this change happen faster?
I think obviously organisations have to prioritize technology investment. Skills is an absolute priority. I don't think that if you're working for a big organization, a multinational organization, they will have the internal skills development. But a lot of small and medium enterprises are not getting those skills. It was particularly a disappointment to me that we had virtually all of our funding pulled for the Digital Jersey Academy. We had thousands of people going through those courses, and that's going to help them it's going to help them to get another job. Because you think about it, we're starting to see white collar unemployment in Jersey. How are those people going to get back into the workforce and start paying taxes again and start to have an improved lifestyle? It's going to be through technology. It's 2026. They need technology to find a job, to go into an employer and show they have those skills. So I think skills investment in the education system, in the workforce. It's worth saying something I've gone on about for most of the time I've been in Jersey. About 8 years ago now, I went to a very good Chamber of Commerce lunch, and there was I think it was one of the bank economists speaking, and they showed Jersey's declining productivity. And productivity is talked about a lot. But I said to this guy, how do you arrest that decline in productivity? And he said, you invest in two things, technology and education. And we don't invest enough in either.
I mean, as you say, particularly when you talk about the skills course that, is lacking investment, a very simple, very tangible opportunity that was benefiting a lot of people, but has been taken away. Are there other avenues that people can find those skills, or are we sadly lacking at the moment?
We're still running courses with a particular focus on AI. I think there are some private sector people that can teach some of it, especially to larger businesses. But we looked around the world that education, skills development, wherever you are in the world, has to be a subsidized model. Government play a role because government gets the benefit in terms of the economic benefits, etc. It's very difficult to do it. And I'll give you an example which even I was a bit of a cynic about, and others were. So in the academy, we used to teach people how to use LinkedIn. And I had people saying to me, why are you doing courses in LinkedIn? But actually, when I talked about people, especially in professional services, if they've lost their job, how do they get another job? They do it through LinkedIn. How do they present themselves in the best way to get another job quickly? They do that through LinkedIn these days. But also a lot of these people now, they don't necessarily go straight back into a full-time job. They set up their own company. They act as a consultant. As Jersey Business keep telling us, there's lots and lots of single-person businesses. Now, LinkedIn is their shop window. LinkedIn is how they get business. And the more business they get, the better their income is, the more tax they pay and contribute to the economy. And LinkedIn is the shop window for professionals in the same way that Facebook might be for a cafe or a small retailer. And we need to understand that the world is changing. So actually, what's wrong with teaching people how to use LinkedIn? It's absolutely essential. And that's just a small example, but teaching people how to format their data, that's really important and sort out their data. That's really important to use AI. Teaching people how to use AI, but even just how to use what they already have at their desk. How many people have Office 365 on their machine, but they probably only use 10% of the functionality. Teaching people how to do that, they're going to be far more valuable to their employees. So there's still a lot more. We've not given up. We still have a lot of courses that people go onto our website. We've just launched an AI leadership program. We're having to charge £3,000 per attendee. And we've got quite a few attendees already, but if we could get more of those, that'd be great. If there are ways of subsidizing that for people or companies that can't afford it, that would be great. But these are the sort of things I will be talking to the new government about, to invest in the right places, because I get there are priorities, challenges for government, but this is such a big priority for the future of Jersey.
So obviously, as you embed technology and AI more and more into businesses, naturally the risk profile is going to increase slightly. We need to think about cybersecurity alongside that. I mean, what threats are there? And are we doing enough to also look at that mitigation as we grow our AI adoption?
You're right. As you change any technology, you change the nature of the threat. If you had an archive full of paper, you're worried about fire and you have fire alarms. When you put that online, you're worried about cybersecurity. That is an area where Jersey has been very good. The government have been very good. They focused on, data protection, regulations. We have a great information commissioner. Jersey has set up the Jersey Cybersecurity Centre. We're mandating cyber essential skills and things like that. And I think if you talk to virtually every company, they get at a board level the importance of cybersecurity. They make sure that they have a plan, they have a strategy. Government have put a lot of focus on that as well. So actually, that is one of the success stories I think we do. And because we're a finance industry, because we're an international finance center, we've realized for a long time we have to take that seriously. So you can't be complacent. You always have to keep improving. But yes, I think we are doing a lot there. We have the Channel Islands Information Security Forum, and they do a lot of work across both Channel Islands with the finance industry and other companies. I've seen increasingly charities, for example, they get now the importance of cybersecurity. They're making sure their staff are going through the right training for it. So there's always risk. You've got to make sure the public, scams and things like that. But if you see the way the police, the way government agencies, regulators have seen, I think we get that. So we need to keep evolving as AI. I mean, if you're right, if you look at AI, one of the challenges around AI is we can't trust what we see and hear in the same way as we did. So we have to adapt to that, and we have to have methodology for checking out. But we did it with text messages, we've done it with phone calls, we now do it with videos and AI and emails and things like that.
I mean, there is, of course, Jersey has an older population who can kind of benefit from some of these things, but you've touched upon, for example, some of the scams there, the risks that AI poses and how it's become increasingly sophisticated. So is there a literacy piece there that we need to work on for those other members of society?
I think there is. One of the things I realized for the first time during COVID is we do have a digital divide, which I don't think we necessarily thought was there. And that's whether that is young people in a home environment that don't have the equipment, they don't have the family broadband connection, they don't have their own personal device, they're using a smartphone, to have a laptop or a tablet or something, but also old people as well. The library, for example, used to be a great center for older people to go and learn how to use technology. And I think they've suffered, from cutbacks and different priorities. And I think one of the things government can do, as government hopefully gets more digital in the delivery of its services, is there's a great focus on assisted digital, as they call it. So how do you help people learn how to do their tax return online, learn how to interact online rather than have to go to a physical building, eventually in Jersey, even learn how to vote online. And we have to provide that. So I think a lot of, as I said, somebody said to me recently, if you think the iPhone has been out for about 15 years plus, so somebody when it came out who was 55 is now 70. So actually, as time goes on, I think a lot of people assume that older people are not good with technology. But they are. My mum and dad are in their late 70s. They're using technology all of the time. They're doing stuff online. But there is, you do have to help them. And so what the education and skills development I talked about for young people in the workforce, I think we have to make sure that's available to the elderly, retired as well. But also, we keep saying we need people to work for longer. Now, if people can work from home, if people can use technology, there are opportunities there for individuals and for the economy.
So it's a really interesting point you make about kind of closing that digital divide. Do you feel positive that we are on that journey, that we can finally bridge that gap?
I don't think we're doing enough. I don't think there is quite the realization, because we're a prosperous society in many ways. We're very lucky to have great infrastructure. I talked about our fibre broadband, for example. But there are always people, you've got to make sure that people don't get left behind. You want to make sure that the benefits of digital are open to everyone. There's been that debate about cash, for example. And it was good to see, even in the proposition about mandating cash, it wasn't just about forcing retailers to take cash. It was, how do you help people make sure they get the benefits of a cashless society? How can you help people get bank accounts and debit cards and mobile payments and things like that? Like in the old days, years ago, people used to talk about the discounts you got for direct debits. Well, if somebody doesn't have a bank account and they haven't got a direct debit, they're paying more. So actually, this is not about forcing people to enable them to carry on using old technology. How do you help them get the benefits of technology? Make sure they're universal.
I mean, there's lots that we can do as a society, that government can assist with, that Digital Jersey can assist with, to be able to help people kind of build those skills, build that literacy. But for those who kind of want to be self-starters with it, if they haven't touched AI before and they're thinking, where on earth do I begin? I really, really want to learn. What would be your advice to them? Where do they start?
I think it's having an intellectual curiosity. So if somebody has got, as you said, they want to find out more, they probably do have devices they can play around with. If they're in a work environment, they've probably got Microsoft Office, they've probably got Copilot now. They can experiment, they can play around, they think about simple processes. One of the things that Jersey has adapted to very quickly, and I know you guys and all our media use this as well, is meeting minutes. Everyone is to every meeting you go to, because who wants to take and write up meeting minutes if that there really is an example of drudgery. So find something simple that AI can work really well. Look at what you already have, because quite often people have an app on their phone or something that uses AI. Google search now. Most people using Google search, they're getting an AI response, they realize the benefit. But I think it's look at what they've got, try a few things out, experiment, Google it. That's an easy thing to say, but ask AI how to use AI. You'd be surprised how good it is at doing that. But I think it is that having that intellectual curiosity, experimenting in a safe way, don't give your personal information away. Make sure you're using something which is protecting your personal data. But there's lots of advice out there. There's lots of advice for the Information Commissioner's Office, Digital Jersey website. There's all sorts of areas out there. But just play around with it. Play around with it, see what it can do. And I think people would be surprised. I mean, it still surprises me. I mean, the latest thing with me is how you wouldn't guess this. Copilot has a sense of humor. AI has a sense of humor. So I don't know whether you get this, but at the end of maybe it's just me, the end of my week, I get a message from Microsoft Copilot say, would you like me to roast your week? And of course,
Excellent.
This has access to my emails and my Teams messages and my meetings and meeting minutes. And it sort of takes the Michael, so to speak, out of my week. And this terrifying thing is it's funny. It's accurate. It's funny. It's entertaining. And that starts to, I always think AI surprises you. And when I go to use AI now, it's light years ahead of where it was 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. So I would say to people, give it a chance, try things out, look up what they want to use it for and what people recommend. Because I said awareness is very high, but it's getting people to take that next step. And what I would say is once people start using it, it's very hard to go back.
Well, obviously, we've seen change happen exceptionally rapidly. We know at the moment that there are businesses that are tearing up their previous kind of 5-year business plans and saying, because of AI, we're going to do things entirely differently. We're not going to grow in this same way. There's a lot going on that is happening exceptionally rapidly. Can you paint me a picture in your mind of where we're going to be in 5 years' time, a vision for Jersey with this?
I think it's not so much about science fiction. It is really about, we are still going to see teams of people working in the same sort of environments, but there might be less of them. There might be smaller teams. They might have virtual team members that they work with, virtual teams that they work with, and they're using AI, they're using technology to do more, to do things more quickly that perhaps that used to take them a while. It also, as I said earlier on, some of the things that used to spend a lot of time on, that was a bit of drudgery they didn't enjoy but had to be done, they can be automated. So it's freeing people up to do more things. And that's the thing. If you give people the skills, they can use it to be more productive, but it's giving them the skills to also add more value and to do more. So I think we are going to see improvements in productivity. We are going to see less jobs in some areas. The trick is we have to invest to make sure we have new jobs, new companies, whether startups or, if you look at financial services, digital asset companies, fintech companies, things like that, we have to carry on diversifying. So I think there's a lot of hype out there. There is, let's face it, there is definitely hype. One of the things I found really useful is to look at AI as you would a fellow team member. Professor Alan Brown, who we work with, Professor Dame Wendy Hall as well, is on our board. He says, think of AI as having a team of interns. But you wouldn't just you wouldn't expect an intern on day one to know everything about your company, to know everything about it. You have to define their role. You have to tell them what your expectations are. You have to give them the information, the training, and you have to monitor whether they're doing a good job, correct them where they're going wrong. So you do have that. But if you think of AI as a person and don't expect it to be magic, that's where I think it falls down. People expect AI to just work like magic. But if you haven't given it the right information, if you haven't given it the right instructions, don't expect it to give you the right answer, because you wouldn't expect a human being to do that. So I think it's going to be evolutionary, but it is going to accelerate. And the real challenge for Jersey is, how do we become a fast follower? How do we become a really good use? Wouldn't it be great if we were one of the best international finance centres in the world at using AI?
I think that's an amazing vision for the island. Thank you very much for your time.
Welcome.